I felt like this film was truly authentic, while at the same time having reminiscent notes that were things that we love in cinema, like a Western story. This is just a neo-Western in a different landscape that you haven't seen before, but it still has, you know, these similar iconic things like that massive Remington revolver.
Il s'en sert pour préparer quelque chose. Quelque chose qu'il ne nous dit pas.
What's up, YouTube? It's Drive-By Movies here, and you are watching
Fresh Releases.
My name is James.
My name is Blaze.
And this week we are back on Shudder as we check out their new film, Saloum.
Qu'est-ce qu'il a trouvé ici?
Shudder's new exclusive Saloum is the story that takes place in 2003 about a trio of mercenaries escaping a coup in Guinea-Bissau that take refuge in a hidden region on the Saloum River of Senegal, but something from beyond the grave awaits them there. So this film, I wouldn't say it's been like totally hyped. It actually did play a lot of major festivals like Fantastic Fest and I think it was Vancouver Film Festival, a couple other major film festivals, especially in their midnight or like cult categories. So yeah, this film did get some acclaim from those and awards here, and it picked up awards here and there from different film festivals, but it's kind of just been like dropped on Shudder, but then almost gotten a bunch of like great write-ups, like talking about how great the film is. And it's brought more attention to, you know, just a weekly Shudder movie, especially approaching Halloween that we're in now. We're approaching like the month of October and approaching Halloween. So it's definitely films that you haven't seen before that are going to be more in the horror genre type films are going to be hyped up and you're going to be getting excited about it, especially with a lot of the major streamers doing their own type of event for, you know, Halloween. I think Netflix, Hulu, all these streamers have their own specific event, but Shudder has it. I think it was like 61 days of
60
Halloween.
Something, yeah.
Yeah, we've already missed like 30 of them probably, I'm sure, because I think it started in August if I remember correctly. But anyways, let's get to the point. Saloum, James, what'd you think of this movie?
So yeah, a couple weeks back we checked out another Shudder exclusive, Glory Hole with Ryan Quant. Or I'm sorry, not Glory Hole. It's called Glorious. Making that joke again. Yeah. I kind of got worried with that release, with just like, because Shudder I thought was like always releasing some bangers for the most part. I really enjoyed Host and, you know, countless other movies as well too. It just felt like, you know, they were really bringing stuff that was very diverse and different and felt fresh. And while Glorious like was different and original, like it felt like a step in just like a direction that I wasn't into, and I was just like, this is kind of just like crap that like Netflix would put out because it's cheap, has a big star, and it's bonkers, I guess you can say. But here is a new movie that is released by Shudder that just changed my perception again and just feels very different. There's definitely like two tones going on within this movie, and I prefer, I guess you could say, the first half of the movie versus the actual horror elements within the movie that kind of change within the second half of the film. But still, it feels very different. We don't see a lot of movies like this. I don't really know how to describe it because it's very like thriller, you know, social commentary-esque in the first half, still with some social commentary in the second half as well too, but has those horror elements, but also feels like a Western. Like the only thing I can really think of, and I hate saying this just because both are foreign films, but like Baccarat from a couple of years ago was one of my favorite films from 2020. And this film, while not as good as that one, just feels very fresh, and a lot I enjoyed, some things that like not so much as others. But what are your initial thoughts?
So yeah, I have to say I was really surprised by this movie. I think if I didn't know going into it that there was going to be this huge genre-bending twist, because nowadays I feel like it's like the thing to not only just say like, oh, I really like this movie is really good, but to like spoil some aspect of it. Like honestly, it would have been a weird twist. I mean, it's called a twist for a reason. I feel like because the twist, like it would be cool going into it not spoiled. So I think I would have got a little bit more appreciation going into this movie not knowing that there was this genre bending twist, that this film has horror elements. But I do agree with you, this film in the first half, like before it makes that genre bending twist, essentially it has a very, very cool like neo Western feel, and I feel like I absolutely love that neo-Western feel. I was going to mention Bacurau as well. You brought it up. I think that was my favorite film of the year that came out. If I can remember correctly, I think that was 2019 or 2020.
It was 2020. I remember it was the pandemic year.
Yeah, I think it was like one of those things where it came out the very tail of 2019 but counts for 2020 or something
yes,
like that.
That is what it was, yeah, for
so
sure.
It almost either gets lost in a no man's land of a year, because it can't be, no one can see it in 2019 to add it to their best of list, and then it's too late for 2020 almost. But I'm gonna say I added it to my 2020 for sure. I think it was like the number one film. But this definitely has vibes of that, but it's its whole own thing where it's adding in all this stuff that is so authentic, and so like, especially like all the stuff about like Chaka's past and the fact that he was like this child soldier. I loved all that aspect that was just so like true to either the filmmakers or the stories that are being told in Africa. Like, I felt like this film was truly authentic, while at the same time having reminiscent notes that were things that we love in cinema, like a Western story. This is just a neo-Western in a different landscape that you haven't seen before, but it still has, these similar iconic things, like that massive Remington revolver that he's toting around, that just, honestly, you see in the poster of this film, that shit just looks fucking cool.
Yeah, I know, like, I kind of associate those kind of guns with something that like kills a vampire or something, and I guess like it's kind of good foreshadowing, just because you would imagine a gun like that is what's used to kill something very supernatural. And like, I guess like I haven't seen the trailer for this movie, but I would assume it probably does reveal it as a horror film, just because it's making its way to Shudder. You expect a movie that's on Shudder to be a horror film, and not all the time they only have like horror films. They have plenty of like comedy films on their documentaries, but still have some kind of element of horror involved with that. And yeah, I guess that in itself probably spoiled the second half. I would have loved to have seen like it for the first time, not really knowing what it's about and stuff, just because going from like the overall just like sequence of just like writing or the plot synopsis, it doesn't sound like it would be a horror film. But I love though that like when it does make the turn, like a lot of the shots are done sparingly. Like, you're so used to the shot being pretty held still for the most part, but during the action sequences, of course, we get the shaky cam. I thought it was used very sparingly and like used at the right moments. Like, a lot of times, like, I just like hate shaky cam or it goes too crazy, but I definitely notice it's more to kind of just hide the special effects within the movie. But actually, I got to say that the special effects are actually really good for a movie that was, low budget and, was used proper amount of times where it's not showing too much, but still getting the point across and still look pretty realistic for it being a low budget film.
Yeah, honestly, that was one of the biggest things that surprised me about this movie, not being somebody who's always like super into CGI or just over production of special effects, when you could go maybe the more practical route. This, I felt like, obviously goes honestly the more CGI route. I could be wrong though. Honestly, sometimes it was so good where I'm like, is it possibly like a practical effect that was like maybe even boosted at times? Especially, I'm speaking of like when it's like embodies like a person or something. But there's clearly moments where like there are things flying through the sky that are all CGI, but the effects were absolutely done well. It reminds me more of something along the lines of like Avengers Endgame type stuff, where it's this like kind of ash, like, when people all became ash. I felt like it was honestly better than that at times. I'm like, oh shit, that's actually legit for the special effects. You wouldn't expect it to be that good. But yeah, I have to agree with you. They did overdo some of the shaky cam at times, too high. The fact that those special effects were included, but it added something. And I think that's something that a lot of like the bigger mainstream movies shy away from, because they have the budget for like awesome special effects. Although sometimes the special effects don't end up being as great as maybe the budget, shows off. They don't kind of like try and mask the film with like either a shittier camera or, camera motion and stuff like that. But that's something we kind of learned from Neil Blomkamp, is he would always, hide his special effects with layers of other maybe not effects, but just layers that you could hide the special effects under to kind of make them feel more like they're within the frame of the film, as opposed to just being applied to it.
Right, yeah, and I assume I'm not familiar with the director Jean-Luc for Bulo. But I'm curious to see what other projects they've worked on, because I mean, I don't know if, like, I know storyboards are a thing on like a lot of big budget films and stuff, but like, you know, trying to achieve shots like this, I would imagine though they had to, you know, prepare a lot. Like, I mean, maybe I know the filmmakers of Skyline literally just shot a movie and just added the special effects in there. It's possible that was the case with this too, but just like, yeah, it was like blended very well within this movie, used sparingly enough and stuff. And so like when the scares do start to happen, like they're pretty effective for the most part. And then like some of the kills too, like a lot of like, you know, the seizure moments, and especially the last jump scare that reminded me of the Friday the 13th kind of scare in the original film, like were very well used and everything too. Like I like that the film wasn't like, it's a movie that easily could have went overboard with trying too hard for the budget it had, but you have a very skilled filmmaker who knew what they were doing, knew that like there's a lot of restraints with making a movie like this. Got to keep it simple but still have it effective and still make it feel grand, and very grand it did feel.
Yeah, definitely. And I have to say, I agree with you completely. Like, this is a filmmaker to watch. I can't wait to see what their work is going to be in the future, because there's definitely a push to, you know, find different types of filmmakers, diversify, and find different stories that we've not been told, or you know, are new and fresh. And this is definitely somebody that is going to be able to bring us those types of stories that relate to the stories that they may have had or been told. Or yeah, it's just everything about this film. Like, it might not have been the most original film at the same time, but it did feel like entirely original. Like, it's like they repackaged something that maybe we'd seen before in a way, but gave it just this whole new flair, where I'm like, I'd be down to see definitely the next movie that this guy makes here.
Yeah, I definitely see myself also watching this movie again. I'd say, just to like kind of have someone go in blind, and then like From Dusk Till Dawn. Like, I talked about how in previous episodes we've done, where I'm just jealous of people who had no idea what the plot was going into it and stuff, and I can see some people appreciating that aspect of the movie. So, you know, if you've been watching this and haven't seen it, I feel bad, because now you know what to expect for the most part. But, you know, hopefully you agreed with our thoughts on the movie and stuff too. I see it's pretty divided. Like, critics love it, audiences are kind of like on the fence about it, but I highly enjoyed it. Like, you know, let us know in the comments down below what you thought about the movie. It's a great way to help support the show.
And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, and click the notification bell to get all our latest updates.
And if you can't get enough of us here on YouTube, catch all our links down below for our social media links for Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and personal letterbox accounts. Anyways, that'll conclude this week's episode. Tune in next week for a brand new video, everyone.